Welcome to this video on the Zenware channel. My name is Sri Satguru, Buddha Rawa Bhagwan. Today's video we're going to talk about an integration wave. So what is a reintegration wave? So at the levels of where the stories exist, okay, where the different main stories exist, where the heroes exist, where the different streams exist, okay? So basically the streams that come from the main streams, from the main stalks, from the main trees of the Adishree, the royal trees of life, of storyline, okay, of the Shrees, of the Adishree, the first Shree, who are 12, who were 7, who were 3, who was first 1. Okay, which is the dual god, both male and female. So as there are the story of the Adishree, there are the stories of the different streams that come from the Adishree. Within these streams exist stories, okay, so at the level of the stories, and stories exist at different levels depending on their attainments and their developments spiritually as a spiritual being. So at the level of the stories, what is a reintegration wave? What is a reintegration story? A reintegration wave happens at the level of the Adishree. So when there is an integration of the stories at the level of the Adishree, okay, so at all the stories that fall under the stories of the Adishree, so all the different streams of the different royal paramparas, of the different royal lineages, of the different royal trees of development and storyline, including different creation stories, okay, that exist coming from the Adishree and development stories. So as there is a merge of development stories, so as different stories take their maturity, okay, they reintegrate with the first of the Adishree, Om Tek Ra Siva. And as there's a reintegration of the stories, there is an integration or a reintegration wave. Okay, so think about like literally, visually, you can see it at some lokas and some stories where the stories exist. You can see a wave that moves through the system, that moves through the land where the stories reside. And as it touches different stories or heroes or people, they are basically reintegrated into the storyline of the merged Adishree, of the reintegrated Adishree, Om Tek Ra Siva. So a reintegration wave is an integration story, okay, in a sense. So it is very feared in that way. So that's why people say traditionally, you know, if there's a reintegration wave, run for the hills, because if it touches you and if it reaches you, and that's the thing with an integration wave, it touches everywhere and goes everywhere, so you can only delay the inevitable by running from it, but eventually it touches you. And a reintegration wave covers everything and is all pervading, right? It basically spreads across all the storylines, all the stories, all the heroes, everyone. So a reintegration wave actually moves through at some lokas. You can see the wave moving through, okay, basically, and that wave is the reintegration of the stories of the Adishree. So that's a reintegration wave. So what happens at the level of the reintegration wave, why everybody fears the reintegration wave, is because when the reintegration wave touches you, everything is integrated within the new version of reality, the new reintegrated reality of the merge of the Adishree, the reintegration of the Adishree. So what happens at that point is there's a review that's done at the level of stories, right? Because what happens is basically the Adishree and the merge and the reintegration of the Adishree happens, right, through the storyline of God that comes into the storyline of the descent of God as an avatar, right? So what happens is you have the reintegration, and with the reintegration, you have basically the reintegration and reorganization of everything that is touched, all the stories that are reached by the reintegration wave. So the reason it is feared is because the reintegration wave brings light, right? It's a merging of light. It's a reintegration of light. It's basically as an avatar comes, he brings the light, right? Of the Adishree. So the light, the first light of the Adishree is brought into the story. And what happens is that first light, okay, brings the light that is exactly as it is spoken, exactly as it is said, as exactly as it is drawn, exactly as it is written, right? So that light is very close to the light. It's of a purity of light. which is at the purest level. So what happens is when that reintegration happens, right, the avatar happens, right, the moving of the cycle towards that cycle of reintegration of the Adishree and the moving of the ages, right, what happens is you have basically that light which comes and illuminates everything, right, and basically brings light to everything, right? And by that bringing light to everything, some things are made to be shown as not necessarily as exact in the light, right? So basically, some things are basically reorganized. You can think reorganization of the storyline and the system and the priorities under which everything falls, and also reintegration of the story of the Adishree. So basically, the culmination of the developments of the Adishree as himself a being of power which seeks to develop and grow himself, right? So the reason for his division into the different Adishree so that they could develop their streams of development of the story, their streams, so that they can all be reintegrated into a reintegration of all the Adishree. Okay, so there's a lot going on at that level. And then you see what an integration wave that moves through the system, integrating the stories, and those that are touched, there's a review of their story. Does their story fall still and stay valid, right? And to what degree and extent do they continue to exist as a story within the reintegration of the Adishree that is done, and which moves throughout the system and basically touches all systems and all stories, because all systems and all stories fall within the streams of the Adishree, including the stream, for example, of the Dharma, and the stream, for example, of the Tej, the Aztec Tej, or the Hindu or Dharma. So a reintegration wave is actually a wave that you can visualize moving through the system, which basically brings about the reintegration of the stories under the reintegration of the avatar, and the moving forward of the story with the reintegration of the Adishree. So that is why the integration wave is feared by the stories and by the heroes, because it basically brings light of a purity, of an utmost purity of light, of information and truth to all the stories, right? Which also in a way shows other stories to be less valid or less close to the light, or all these different things, or also reorganizes stories. So stories are worried about losing, that what makes them unique, right? What gives them their place, their light, their sustenance, right, in the story. So the reorganization of the system, reorganization of the stories, or reintegration of the stories, bringing the stories together. So basically stories are worried about becoming redundant within the new reintegration of the story. So they don't want to become redundant systems that no longer have a place within the story. They want to retain their place within the story. So they run for the hills to try to retain it in the ancient version and in the old version before the reintegration wave hits that part, and they keep running in that way, but there's nowhere to run. Okay, so the reintegration wave, reintegration of the stories under a new combined unity and reintegration of the Adishree. Thank you for listening to this video on the Zenowar channel. Tek Rasiva Adishree Adi Bhagwan.